Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar, How to Build a 2018 Marketing Plan That Drives More Direct Bookings. My name is Matt. I'm the founder of Q4Launch, and we are excited you guys are along for the ride with us today. Can I get a shout out from anybody who is as pumped for Christmas as I am? I'm such a Christmas geek. Those of you that get the Q4 Christmas letter, I see several of our customers on this call and some of our friends as well. I'm going to speak to that a little bit in our Christmas letter this year, but it's been a pretty awesome season for us. We just this weekend came back from the Polar Express, which is an actual train ride up in the Great Smoky Mountain area. I took our 2-year-old little girl and did that. And let me tell you, it was just something special to see Christmas all over again from a 2-year-old's eyes. So it was really magical. I hope you're experiencing that magic of the season as well, and not getting too busy with work or too caught up in other things. See some ho-ho-hos in the chat panel there. So thanks for that. I'm glad some other people are feeling the Christmas spirit. One of the other things I love about this time of year is the chance to dream and plan for 2018. I am a self-admitted dreamer. I love the visioning. I love the dreaming. I love working on those things with our team. I love leading our team in those efforts. So this time of year, getting a chance to reflect and do a lot of that is fun. And honestly, leading this type of webinar is something that's really fun. Putting it together, the content, thinking about it, are things I think are a lot of fun. So glad you guys are along for the ride. Hopefully some things are helpful for you in today's webinar as you're dreaming and planning for your 2018 and what will hopefully be the best year for your business yet. It's also kind of a turbulent time, right? I mean, a lot's going on in the industry, and we're going to talk about that as well. So a little bit of housekeeping. We will be using the chat panel for questions and answers, so feel free to put questions in there. I'll do my best to answer those for you at the end of our time together. We'll also send a copy of the recording out. So if you want a copy of this, we'll make sure to get a copy of that out to you via email if you register today. Maybe you're listening to the recording now. And that's great. We're glad that you're listening. We see a lot of people come and listen to those recordings. We'll also have kind of a next step for you to take at the end of our time together today. So if you are listening to the recording and you want to take that next step, just get in touch with us. My contact information is there on the screen because the poll that we use to manage that won't work for you on the recording. So just keep that in mind. But with that, let's dive in. I want to tell you a little bit about us at Q4Launch. If this is our first time, there's a few first timers I think on our webinar today, so we're glad you're here too. As I said, my name is Matt. Founded this company about 9 years ago. For the last 4 years, we've been exclusively focused in the travel space. We work with bed and breakfast, boutique hotels, small resorts, and vacation rental companies, and do that from Singapore to Maui and just about everywhere in between. Actually, have brought on 3 Hawaii customers in the last 45 days. So for whatever reason, they tend to come in waves, and we're heavy in Hawaii right now. So it's a good place to be thinking about and working on this time of year. But that's a little bit about us. We're the fastest growing marketing and advertising agency in the travel industry. So we focus on a very small niche within the travel industry, but a lot of the things we think about and do for ourselves from a marketing strategy and the things we're going to teach you a little bit about today are the same things we're teaching to you, the same things we're doing for our customers, are the same things that have driven our growth in the last 3.5 years. And over the last 3 years, according to Inc. magazine, we're the fastest growing advertising agency in the travel industry, which is incredible honor, something we're excited about. It doesn't change really anything. And it actually doesn't talk at all about the present. It's all looking at what's happened over the last 3 years, but an exciting time as well, and something that tells us that the strategies we're using are working really, really well for our customers. And we know that from the data. And we want to help you along that road. Whether you're a customer and you're looking to know some of the things we're thinking about in 2018, which your customer experience manager is talking to you about, and some of this isn't stuff that we necessarily would do for you, or you're just trying to get some help and guidance on figuring out your own plan. We hope today's webinar will help you with that. So as we look ahead at 2018, we want to spend a few minutes doing a quick review of 2017. One of the things that we saw this year was continued industry consolidation through numerous acquisitions and capital raises. There still tends to be, and it's not as much maybe in the B&B side, but more the hotel side of what we do, and some of the small ends. And we're seeing some of those hotel brands moving into this boutique hotel space, which is impacting the B&B industry as well, because there's not really a clear line of delineation between what's a boutique hotel and what's a bed and breakfast. But there's a lot of consolidation happening. A lot of management companies and a lot of larger brands are moving into the space. We're seeing traditional flagged brands like the Hyatts and the Marriotts of the world moving into the boutique space and competing more head-to-head with us because of the growth in the boutique lodging space. There's also tons of opportunity, tons of growth in the boutique lodging space, which is bringing a lot of that in. We also saw Airbnb this year surpass 4 million listings and become the largest hospitality brand as far as key count goes in the world. So the largest hospitality brand in the world compared to thinking about like a Hyatt or a Marriott, where the statistic there would be comparing the number of rooms that Hyatt or Marriott has under their flag to the number of rooms or listings Airbnb has under their flag. So the largest brand in the world from a listings perspective or a key count perspective, which is crazy. And they don't actually own any real estate. So that's even more wild. Although Hyatt and Marriott, a lot of their real estate is owned by franchisees as well. But and then massive change at Expedia. And Expedia transitioned bedanbreakfast.com into a true OTA. We actually did a call maybe a week ago or 2 weeks ago about Expedia's third quarter earnings call and the takeaways from that we had for the industry. So if you didn't catch that, would encourage you to reach out and we'll get you a copy of that, because there's a lot of information in there you need to know about as it impacts 2017. A lot of it very specific to the vacational world, but as bedanbreakfast.com was technically owned by HomeAway. HomeAway is a very vacation focused brand. But some interesting takeaways for the entire lodging industry as well in that. So it was a big year of change. And one of the things that we took away from Expedia's earnings call was how much change they are driving as a platform or a marketplace, how much they are changing and evolving and working to get better every day. And that's something that I think is a really big deal as we think about our strategies in 2018 is what are we doing different? What changes are we making? What are we doing to evolve? What are we doing to get better as individual brands? As a part of looking at 2017, we wanted to talk about a couple other things. One, that change is happening faster than ever. I spoke to that a little bit. And if that has you worn out, as it does a lot of people, I spent some time in a meeting with one of our customers this morning, and they're worn out by that pace of change. But the bad news is it will continue to accelerate. So if you're worn out by it, it will continue to accelerate. And I'm sorry to be the one to break that news to you, but that's the way it's going to work, and that's the way it's been working. If you're excited by that pace of change, the good news is it will continue to accelerate. But no matter where you are, pace of change is happening faster than it ever will, and it will happen exponentially faster. That's the way technology works. As it accelerates, it gets faster, faster, faster all the time, because one change in technology allows everything downstream of it to continue to accelerate at a faster pace. So you can expect that to continue to accelerate, and then you've got to figure out in your business, how are you going to maintain and keep up with those things? The good news is, as we look at the travel industry, there's more opportunity than there has ever been. We've seen an increase in travel industry spending in our industry as a whole, so that's really exciting. But when we look at the sector that we really operate in as a company, the unique or the boutique lodging sector, the alternative lodging sector, so alternatives to Hyatt and Marriott, that sector of the industry has grown at a faster pace than the rest of the travel industry, which means there is a shift happening. If our sector of the travel industry is growing faster than the travel industry as a whole, it means dollars are shifting inside the industry. So that's important to note, because what's happening and what we're seeing happen is that there are traditional hotel customers, Marriott, Hyatt customers, who are shifting into what has been kind of coined the alternative accommodations. And as we look at alternative accommodation, it's really about, a lot of people refer to that about the vacation rental market, but there's more to it than that. There's a lot more going on than just the vacation rental market. Airbnb has grown awareness of the sector in a huge way. So whether you love or hate Airbnb, you have to admit that they have grown awareness of the independent or alternative lodging sector. And then you have to figure out what part of that alternative lodging sector is really your niche. And how are you going to fit into that? How are you going to make the most of that opportunity? At the same time, there's more opportunity than there has ever been. There is more competition than there has ever been, in more ways than we have ever seen it. I mean, I don't think very many of us would have thought 5 years ago that we would be competing against someone renting a room in their house the way that we are with Airbnb. I mean, technically, a lot of B&Bs are doing the same thing. They're just doing it in a more professional manner. But now they're competing against this person they never would have thought of as an innkeeper before. And they're not necessarily. They're just an Airbnb host. But that's competition, more than we've ever seen it. At the same time, the OTAs are spending more money than they've ever spent to reach guests and reach travelers. And the cost to acquire a customer is continuing to rise. So there's so much happening in that overall space, so much going on, that there's more competition than there's ever been. The massive opportunity that the travel market is creating is attracting a ton of capital, a ton of people moving into that space because of the opportunity that's being attracted there. And that looks different than it's looked before. I mean, we're seeing new accommodation types popping up. We're seeing incredibly changes in that. I mean, with tree houses and yurts and everything else, like the marketplace is changing in a big way. And I think we have to think about that as we're looking at growth in 2018 and what opportunities exist there for our businesses. How do we look at that? How do we differentiate ourselves in that marketplace where there's more competition than there has ever been? And we wanted to take a little bit of a look ahead at 2018 and talk a little bit about some of the change that we see happening there. One, we think 2017's trends show no signs of slowing down. So directories that are out there will continue to move towards marketplaces. I can tell you I have a lot of friends who are in the venture capital or private equity world, and the private equity guys are all about some marketplaces right now. You know, in 2000 it was the .coms, and I'm not predicting the follow-up of it is a .com bust, but in 2000 it was the .coms. Now it's the marketplaces. Like the private equity guys want to own the next Amazon of your industry. And that's what everybody is racing to create. There are so many companies trying to create new ones. And at the same time, the ones who are existing marketplaces are trying to solidify and expand their hold on what they have, on the industry that they have. So those trends that we're seeing in directories converting into marketplaces, like we saw HomeAway do, HomeAway and VRBO have converted into a marketplace. They converted bedandbreakfast.com from a directory into a marketplace. Those type of trends are going to continue to accelerate. Change will continue to accelerate. Technology, guest expectations will continue to accelerate. Everything will continue to accelerate in 2018. We also believe OTAs will continue to invest in owning the guest. I was talking to somebody and they were talking about, well, can't we just revolt and pull all of our inventory off of the OTAs? And yes, we can. You know, as an industry, you could try to coordinate that and organize that, and you can. And we've helped several customers be completely OTA or third-party booking independent. And if I say OTA, I'm talking about online travel agents like Expedia, Airbnb, HomeAway, Booking.com. So if you're not familiar with the term OTA, that's what we're talking about when we say OTA. But what they know and how a marketplace is valued is not based on the inventory that it has. It's based on the customers that it has and how often they become repeat customers of that marketplace. So as they're racing to create shareholder value, they know it's about owning the guest. So they will do everything they can to own and control and retain the guest. They don't necessarily care about the inventory because they can find somebody who wants a booking. They can always find somebody who needs it in their opinion. I'm not saying it's right, but that's their opinion, and their behavior speaks to that. But what they can't always do is go find new guests. So the cost to acquire guests is higher for them than the cost to acquire inventory as it relates to revenue. And the revenue flows from the guests to the property. So their focus is getting the revenue to flow, not on who they're going to give it to. The focus is on getting it to flow. They don't care who it goes to. They just want to make their percentage on that journey, on that path. So as part of that, they will continue to invest in owning that guest relationship, and will continue to do more and more marketing to try to wall that off from the property. They want the guests to think they're doing business with the OTA and have loyalty to the OTA, not to the property that they're staying at. So you've got to think about that, and we're going to talk about that quite in depth a little bit later on. And then one of the other things that we know is going to happen in 2018 is that pay-per-click will get increasingly expensive. So I don't know what role pay-per-click plays in your overall marketing strategy right now. Maybe it plays a big role, maybe it plays no role. But pay-per-click will get increasingly expensive, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more in depth later on as well. So as we talk about that, as we talk about what has happened in 2017 and what's going on in 2018, you need a plan for 2018 to thrive in turbulent times. Just as George Washington led people into battle, 2018 in a lot of ways is going to be a year of battle. The OTAs will continue to fight harder and harder. Google is trying to control more and more of the travel scene through Google Travel and has built an incredible stranglehold on that market. It's really interesting to look at. If you actually look at Google Travel as a company, it's about, I believe, $100 billion company. If I'm remembering that stat right, we actually quoted that stat in the webinar last week, so I haven't looked at that data in a while. And I got a lot of data in my head, as you can imagine, but it's just crazy what's going on. So we need a plan to thrive in turbulent times, because the good news is there's more opportunity. The bad news is there's more competition. So that's creating turbulence, and we have to figure out as independents, how are we going to thrive in those turbulent times and create a plan to help us do that. And there's three things we really want to look at today. Today's going to be a lot more like big picture strategic thinking webinar than we normally do. Normally our webinars are very tactical, very how-to focused, how to do something, and we're teaching you that. Today's webinar is probably going to be more how to think about things. There's going to be some how to do things, but more how to think than we normally would do. So 3 things that you need to plan for in 2018 to thrive in turbulent times. 1, invest in your marketplace. 2, become the destination authority. And 3, own the guest relationship. And we're going to spend the rest of our time together today unpacking those things, and then hopefully add some time to review questions and answers for you. So number 1, OTAs are investing big in their marketplaces. Are you? So I had the opportunity, actually, I was invited by HomeAway to come speak at their conference. They put a conference on every year called ResFest. This year the conference was in Vegas, and got the chance to go out there and speak at their conference for them. But as I was there speaking, was also there representing Q4Launch and listening to other speakers and learning about what's going on with HomeAway and some of the future they see. And honestly, one of my biggest takeaways from that was how many speakers they had on the main stage. The opening day, they had about a 4-hour session where all they did for 4 straight hours was talk about their marketplace. What a year ago would have been a directory with their site, HomeAway and VRBO, the main 2, but they own a family of about 100 sites, one of which is bedandbreakfast.com. They spent a ton of time parading expert after expert to speak about the marketplace and to speak about essentially their website. But they're calling it their marketplace, not their website, and the changes they're making and the history of marketplaces and why they're important, and selling everybody on the idea that they needed to be a part of their marketplace. My takeaway from all of that was that HomeAway, as a part of Expedia, is spending a massive amount of money investing into their marketplace. They are hiring some of the top minds from Expedia to come into HomeAway and help them build this marketplace out and navigate this transition. And a lot of that same thought process and think tank is flowing into their subsidiaries like bedandbreakfast.com and other sites that they own. But they're investing massive dollars into their marketplace because they believe that's the future of their business. And I don't disagree with them. If you study the financials of HomeAway, it's unbelievable what Expedia has accomplished in the last 2 years. And I believe business schools 5 to 10 years from now will be reading case studies about the Expedia acquisition of HomeAway and what they've done. And if you want to know more about that, you can listen to the webinar we did last week on it. But your website is your marketplace to compete. And you need to think about it like that. You need to think about the fact that your website is your marketplace. Your website is your opportunity to exist in the web world and go head-to-head against HomeAway, go head-to-head against Expedia, attract a customer, and tell a story about why they should book with you. At the same time that the OTAs are fighting harder and harder than they ever have to keep them from booking directly with you, you have to fight to get them to book directly with you. You have to have a great marketplace, a great website, and be investing into that on a regular basis. The days of launching your site and never touching it again, just letting it ride out there and no updates, no changes, nothing new going on, those days are over. The companies that are still operating like that are going to fail and go out of business. The companies that view their website as a marketplace and as something that needs to get better every day and evolve and have new content published to it, companies that are doing that effectively will see greater success in 2018 than those that don't. So you have to think about that. You have to figure out how to tell the story of your destination. We're not just selling rooms, we're selling a story. We're selling an experience. People are coming on vacation to have that experience, and our story, our experience needs to differentiate us. It's not just amenities, it's not just rooms, it's not just your property, it's not just your destination. It's how all of those things come together to create a vacation or a corporate travel experience. And you have to tell that story. You have to bring that out front and show it to people, because if it's hard for them to find, if it's hard for them to look for, experience, understand, they won't. They'll go somewhere else, because it's really easy to book on a third-party OTA. So it's got to be, that story has to be out front and told. It has to be fast and easy to use. It has to be nimble meaning it can change quickly. It can pivot on a dime. You have to be able to do that in that way. And think about your website as a marketplace, and know that it should be in that state of evolution. It should be in that state of getting better every day. As you think about that, and our cost to acquire customers is rising in 2018. It rose in 2017, and it continues to rise in 2018. And our cost to get traffic continues to rise through pay-per-click or any other channel. Getting traffic, attracting traffic is more competitive than it's ever been. You need to make every visit count with increased conversion rates. So looking at people coming to your site and really understanding, how do I need to change my site, get content in front of them to make every visit count? Most sites, the industry average conversion rate is about 0.4%. So all things being equal, sites converted about 0.4% to an online booking. You need to be looking at and saying, okay, what do I need to do to get higher? What do I need to do? How do I benchmark to get higher than that? And it takes time, it takes money, it takes effort to invest into that. But you need to make every visit count and focus on increasing your conversion rate. You need to think beyond the book now. You need more calls to action from a conversion path perspective than just book now. Book now really only speaks to people who are in the booking stage. It seems so obvious, but that means that you're ignoring people who are in the dreaming and planning stage of their vacation process. You need to think about those people and have opportunities for them to convert, have opportunities to guide them down that path. So when they're ready to book, they book with you. I think as an industry, as a web design industry, we've made a big mistake in telling people photos are all that matter. I can tell you that over the last, and if you've been on webinars before, you've heard me talk about this, but over the last 6 months, we've been testing a lot with content. And what we have found is rewriting content on certain pages in certain cases has as much as doubled that page's conversion rate. So as you're thinking about the content of your site, and I'm talking about written content at the moment, but as you're thinking about the content of your site, is it doing a good job of telling your story? Is the written content on your site the same thing it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago? And if the answer is yes, then I would ask yourself the question, do you think guests are asking the same questions and looking for the same things today that they were 5 years ago or 3 years ago or whenever you wrote it? Because of the pace of change, they're probably not looking for the same thing they were 6 months ago. So you need to look at your website differently. It's not just photos. Photos are not the only thing that sells your experience. If it was, we wouldn't be seeing the incredible increases in conversion rates by rewriting on-site page content. But you need to look at that and say, okay, am I telling the story? Think back to what I said a few minutes ago about the fact that we're seeing a shift in hotel customers spending money in the alternative accommodation sector more than we ever have before as an industry. And think about the questions that person has. The questions that someone who has stayed at a Hyatt every time they travel, be it for points, be it for whatever reason, they always stay at a Hyatt. But they find your website as they're planning their trip and they're going on vacation. They're thinking, I want to do something different this time. The questions that person has are probably going to be different than the questions someone has who stays at a property like yours all the time, or who stayed at your property before. The questions are very different. And how good of a job is your website doing at answering that person's questions? Or are you only answering questions for people that have stayed with you before and are looking for an experience like yours? Think about those people that may be a little bit afraid, but maybe not sure what an experience looks like. They've heard stories about staying at a bed and breakfast or a boutique hotel or a vacation rental, but they're not quite sure what it's like. And there's a ton of variety because there's not a standard set in our industry like a Hyatt. There's a ton of variety good and bad in that variety. And that variety is scary to people. They want a consistent experience. They want a good experience. So you have to educate them about how you're different, how you're special, and what that experience is going to be like. And as you do that and you overcome their concerns, you will drive conversion and you will drive business for yourself. So number 2, you need to become the destination authority. One of the things that the OTAs can never do is be the authority on your destination in the way that you can be. So when people are dreaming or planning their trip to your destination, are they finding you? Are you publishing fresh and regular content on your website? Are you keeping that information up to date, or do you have a lot of outdated, stale, and irrelevant content throughout your site? And in some ways, I'm talking about blog content, but in some ways I'm not. Some ways I'm talking about other page content. Like, is it updated on a regular basis? Are you the authority on your destination? Are you really educating people about what's going on in your marketplace? Are you creating blog content that gets you found? Notice I didn't just say, are you writing blogs, but blog content that gets you found. Do you know how your blog is performing? I literally just got off the phone with somebody about 30 minutes ago, and they said, well, my blog used to perform great for me, but it doesn't anymore. And I said, well, talk to me about that. Tell me, what do you mean when you say my blog used to perform great for me? And her response was, I don't actually know. That was just my feeling. And I'm like, well, you shouldn't be making marketing decisions strictly off of feeling. Feeling and gut is important, and there's actually neuroscience that backs up that your gut is linked to your brain from a blood flow perspective. So when someone says I made a decision with my gut, there's actually neuroscience that backs up that link between brain and gut and making the right decision. Not going to get into that today, but it's super interesting as we study neuroscience and consumer behavior. But how are you measuring that? Like, is your blog actually getting you found? Is it actually working to help you get discovered? Because your blog should start the conversation with guests and start the conversion journey. If someone's Googling the 8 best wineries in Harrisonburg, Virginia, the link between Googling that and staying and selecting and booking an accommodation is not a direct link. It's not the same link as someone who Googles bed and breakfast Harrisonburg, Virginia, right? The quality of that content, the quality of that searcher, the quality of that visit, their search intent is different. And you have to think about that person differently than you do someone who searches bed and breakfast Harrisonburg, Virginia, and lands on your homepage. So you need to think about that person differently. You need to have different content in front of them. You need to guide them down that path. First, you have to answer their question, right? You have to answer the question, what are the 8 best wineries in Harrisonburg? And when you answer that question, you have the opportunity to talk about when they're planning that trip to stay with you. But you have to realize you're starting a conversation and you're starting a conversion journey. I don't probably go from Googling that to booking something on the same visit. It's just not all that likely. As much as we'd love to see that in analytics, it's just not quite that way. It starts the conversation. And some of our most successful customers getting 100,000 visits a year to their blog, 100,000 travelers discovering them via their blog every year, know that it starts conversations because they get phone calls, and the phone calls are asking questions about things they're not sure why they're asking about until they remember, oh yeah, we wrote a blog about that 6 months ago or last week or whatever. It starts a conversation. And then when you have them on the phone, you've got to do that job of converting them from starting a conversation to booking with you. Or your website needs to do that job. And in actuality, it's both. You have to do it on the phone, and your website has to do it as well to guide them down that conversion path using great calls to action, no matter what device they're on. Don't just use desktop calls to action, but use mobile calls to action as well, and understand how that person's conversion journey is different based off what device that they're on. As you look at that, doing this well will increase your brand awareness, traffic, and revenue. It does every single time. Sometimes it's hard to flush it out because it does start conversations that aren't as trackable, but we know it does. It helps guests discover you, your brand, and your website. And as people are discovering you and your brand and your website, they're growing in brand awareness, and they have an opportunity to book with you, whereas before they might not have even known you existed, or they might have booked through an OTA. Every time we launch a campaign like this and we study brand awareness, and we measure brand awareness in a couple ways, but one of the most effective ways is looking at branded search traffic. We see branded search traffic increase the year after we've launched a campaign where we're a destination authority campaign, essentially. So we know it works to do that. Probably the average increase in branded search traffic is about 30% the year after a destination authority campaign launches. It takes time. We're building a mountain, basically, and we're on our journey up that mountain every time we publish new content. It helps us grow our organic traffic in a time where most are flat or declining. If you talk to most independent hoteliers, bed and breakfast, innkeepers, whatever you want to call them, as you're talking to them, if you really get down, and most of them don't read their analytics or don't understand their analytics regularly, but if they did, and you asked them what the organic traffic was doing, and they would tell you the truth, or you saw their analytics yourself, you'd realize their traffic was flat or declining. And that's not the end of the world, but that's not ideal. That's not where we want to be. We don't want to be in a place where our traffic is flat or declining. We really want to be in a place where our traffic is growing. And we need to think about ourselves as a thought leader as we do that. So number 3, we need to regain ownership of the guest. This is a really important thing. And I say we need to regain ownership of the guest because there was a time where we had ownership of the guest. And there are many of you that probably do still have ownership of the guest relationship. But the OTAs are working harder and harder to wrangle that ownership away from you. So there's a couple of things we would focus on as you're thinking about how to regain ownership of the guest. 1, brand your company and guest experience in a memorable way. You know, many of you do this really, really well. I'm actually drinking out of a Deneen Pottery coffee mug right now that's branded to one of our customers' experiences. But in whether or not you use Deneen Pottery to do that, that's a great option. Or you do something else. Branding your company and your guest experience in a memorable way is incredibly valuable because it separates you, it differentiates you from the average OTA experience. When we need to find unique ways to interact with our guests in what is becoming an increasingly low-touch environment. As more and more people are booking online and less people are making calls, we need to find ways to continue to brand ourselves and make a positive interaction, leave a positive impression in a low-touch environment. So I'd really encourage you to think about that. What are those ways you can make a positive impression? What are those opportunities, and how do you do that effectively? And looking ahead at 2018, how can you leave your guests with a positive, memorable impression? And ideally, something they can share with a friend, right? Or post on social media or whatever else, because that helps extend your reach beyond just that guest and into their friends. Number 2, use email marketing more effectively and regularly. Your guest email database is a gold mine, but you have to mine it. As we talk to people about email marketing, or as I talk to people about marketing in general, one of the most underutilized marketing mediums is email marketing. There's a talk that I do at a lot of conferences and get asked to come give, and one of the things we do is we ask people as we go through the presentation about who all is participating in different marketing mediums. And every time, number 1, people raise their hand for social media. More people are doing social media than anything else from a marketing perspective. And the one that's lowest on the list is email marketing. When I ask people who are sending email marketing regularly and effectively, fewer people raise their hand than any other marketing medium out there. But we're sitting on a gold mine of the people that are most likely to do business with us are the people in our database. Our past guests are the people most likely to do business with us, and they're the people that will spend the most money and be the most profitable. They tend to ask less questions and spend more money when they're on vacation because they vacationed with us before. We've overcome a lot of their hesitancies. Statistics tell us that the average American worker spends 28% of their workday on email. I'll tell you that's true for me, and I'm trying to find ways to spend less time on email, and many of you probably are too. But when your email arrives in their inbox, well, let me back up a minute. I think because of that, I think a lot of people have a misconception on email that people don't want more email. And what they don't want is more email that's work-related, that they have to respond to, that whatever else gets in their way. But if you think about your email reminds them of that great experience they had staying with them. And hopefully it has some strong visuals in it, like this email campaign over here on the right that we're showing you an example of with your Buds and Brews package. I mean, who doesn't want to book the Buds and Brews package? The visual alone draws me in right away. Before I even read the text, the visual catches my attention. because having that flight of beers and sitting down with your buds and like talking through and watching the game or doing whatever it is you do with your friends, those are things that get people excited. And when that email shows up talking about the Buds and Brews package, save today when you book the Buds and Brews package, that gets my attention. And it gives me the opportunity to take a break from all the other email I have to do on a regular basis and really focus in on, okay, cool, what's this about? What's this story about? It gives me a break from that. And that night, if I'm talking to one of my buddies and we're talking about the game or the college football playoffs or whatever else, that memory of that email can may be triggered for me. And I might say, hey, dude, we should check this out. Like, we should go think about this. Think about taking a trip like this. And I know that's an example that's very relevant to me, but think about that for all your customers. I mean, what are they traveling around? Are they traveling around microbreweries? Are they traveling around adventure packages or romantic getaways or shopping experiences? What are those things that make people come to your destination? And using email, creating packages and using email to get that message out. In the same way, you create all this blog content to tell people about what's going on in your area, festivals, things to do, your favorite restaurants, the new brewery that just opened, whatever it is. Email is a way to get that medium out. I talked about the fact that we just went to the Polar Express this past weekend. We learned about that through email marketing. I learned about the Polar Express through email marketing. Had I not saw the email campaign, I might not have known it even existed, and I would have missed out on that whole weekend trip and that entire memory. So we booked a whole vacation experience based off of that email that we got about it. So that's what we know, and that's the power that email can have. It provides the highest ROI of any digital marketing medium out there as it's studied. Typically, it comes back at around a 43-to-1 ROI on email marketing. So for whatever reason, it remains the most underused. I think most people have a lot of misconceptions about it, some of which we spoke to earlier. But the other thing is I think it's just overwhelming for people. They don't know what to send. They don't know when to send it. They don't know how to put it together. So they don't do anything. And that's not the answer. Like, you need to be sending it on a regular basis and getting it out there. And as a part of that, you need to be thinking about marketing automation as well. If you haven't gotten into marketing automation, you need to. If you have, you need to expand it and look for opportunities to do more. For example, just your presence here alone is evidence of a marketing automation campaign. We created a marketing automation campaign, as we do for every webinar, and we send the invitations out through it. And then based off of whether you register or not, that marketing automation campaign continues to run, because the link that we're going to send out with this video is part of that marketing automation campaign. Yes, I have to upload it to YouTube, and then I have to put that link in the email, but the email is already created. It's already ready to go. It's just waiting on the YouTube link. So it's part of a marketing automation campaign that runs based off of that. I don't have to pull down a list and figure out who actually registered and do all that. I just put the link in. I've already written the content. It's ready to go through a marketing automation campaign. And because you registered for the webinar, you are more likely to open an email relevant to it than you would if I just sent that, than if I sent that recording out to our entire database. We only send the recording out to the people that registered because it's relevant to them. Because it's relevant to them, marketing automation campaigns tend to see results 2 to 3 times higher or better than traditional email marketing campaigns. Traditional email marketing campaigns get about a 20% open rate, as cited by industry statistics from MailChimp. Our email campaigns as a company that we send on behalf of our customers tend to see a 30 to 40% open rate. Marketing automation campaigns tend to see 70 to 80% open rate. So huge results for this. And the reason behind that is it's sending the right message at the right time to the right guest. Our webinar recording is the right message at the right time for you. You need to think about what's the right message at the right time for your guests. You need to be thinking about what type of marketing automation campaigns. If you want to take OTA bookers and convert them into direct bookers, how are you nurturing them to do that? If somebody comes to you via an OTA, you know what OTA they came from. But what are you doing to make sure that they book direct next time? Are you creating a marketing automation campaign focused on people that booked on Expedia and getting them to book direct next time? If you're not, you should be thinking about it, and there's opportunities to do that. And you can create that marketing automation campaign, and there's software, and there's stuff that has to happen. But you create it one time, and then it continues to drip out. So you create it one time, and unlike my webinar invitation email that I gave you an example of, this type of thing, every time you have a guest come to you from that OTA, you could drop them in that sequence. You could put their email address in that sequence, and you could trigger that automation to follow. And however many emails are in that sequence, you can trigger that to follow. And I can tell you, as we're looking ahead at 2018, while we will continue to send email campaigns as they have traditionally been, we're going to do more and more in the marketing automation space because the residual value is much, much higher than a campaign that you build it, create it, send it one time. We've been doing marketing automation as an agency for years and years, and I think it's one of the big things that's driven our growth for our customers and the growth that we've seen as a group. But we need to do more. We need to better understand guests and what they're looking for at that different part of their journey and get them the right message at the right time. And as we do that, we will get more and more effective and have greater and greater success. You also need to think about tracking website visitors activity. If you've got a small property, this may not be the right strategy for you because chances are you're probably not doing active lead engagement or active outbounding for leads. But if you are, it would be great to track website visitors activity with technology. And the technology exists where people can actually, where you can track people's behavior. So you're seeing a screenshot of it right here, and I'm just going to walk you through this screenshot, but it helps us know exactly what they're doing. So we see on 11/21, we've got that highlighted, that Cheryl filled out a vacation guide request. That was 11/21, but what the software does for us is it shows us that on 10/27 was actually the first time Cheryl came to our website. On 10/27, she came, we dropped a cookie on her computer, nothing happened. She came back, I don't have the dates for this, but she came back again, On 11/21, probably about a month, or less than a month later, she came back again. So this was her fourth visit to our website. But it's that visit that she filled out our vacation guide. And that triggered this form data that we've now captured. She comes into our database as a contact, that's what that's showing. And then she comes back to our website. She fills out another form the next day. And this is showing now, so I'm guessing this is probably today that she filled out this form. And then we triggered 2 emails to her off of that form that she filled out. So what we're doing here is we're seeing the life of the lead. And you may not use this information. Again, if you're a smaller property and you don't have a reservation agent, you're probably not going to use this type of information. But it is great to have. But I wanted to bring it out and talk about it a little bit because the technology exists to see this kind of tracking. And in the same way, this is great. You know, if Cheryl makes a booking with us and she comes and she stays, that's awesome. But what can be really valuable to know is if Cheryl books with us today, she comes 3 weeks from now, she makes a stay, and then we just start dripping out to her through our campaigns and through everything else. Maybe 6 months from now, Cheryl comes back to our website. Wouldn't that be nice to know? Wouldn't it be nice to know that 6 months later, Cheryl's back on your website, she's checking availability, she's looking at rooms. That type of technology exists. And you can trigger marketing automation based on the fact that Cheryl came back to your website 6 months later and send her an email that says, hey, Cheryl, we noticed you're back on the site. Let us know if there's any questions we can answer for you. We'd love to have you as a guest again. Signed, the Innkeeper. You can create that and automate that. Whereas in reality, you're never going to stop and actually notice that Cheryl is back on your site. Right now, you probably have no idea she's there at all, but you're probably not going to send her a personal manual email, but you can automate a lot of those practices. It helps you know exactly when they're on your website, when they're coming back, what they're viewing, searching, reading. What blogs are they reading? What rooms are they looking at? What forms are they filling out? Did they check out your weddings page? I don't know, maybe. It can tell you all those things. And it helps you increase the traffic to booking conversion ratio or closing rate that we're looking at. And as part of how we can make sure that we're getting the most out of every visit to our site. As we think about attracting more traffic, I said we dive a little bit deeper into pay-per-click as well. But as pay-per-click will continue to rise, one of the biggest takeaways from all the earnings calls that the OTAs had was that they spent more in the third quarter of this year on pay-per-click than they anticipated. And they all said we're going to spend more on paid advertising, pay-per-click specifically, in 2018 than we did in 2017. So if pay-per-click is a part of your strategy, it will get more expensive. Your average cost per click will increase in 2018. You can manage it effectively, and we have. We saw increases across the industry in pay-per-click this year, or excuse me, the cost of each click this year. We managed that really aggressively as an agency and cut actually a lot of people's cost per click, or kept it the same at the same time the industry's cost per click was going up. But you have to be intelligent about your bid strategy to do that. It will get harder and harder. If you're trying to do this on your own, it's going to get harder and harder in 2018. You have to be vigilant about turning off low-performing campaigns to not waste money. It blows my mind how many customers we see come on who are wasting tons and tons of money on low-performing pay-per-click campaigns, and they have no idea. They have no idea what's working, what's not, and the worst is all, when they're working with a quote-unquote professional agency who's blowing money. We had a customer come on with us in the month of November who was spending about $5,000 a month on pay-per-click, and they were being managed by a quote-unquote professional agency, and they were blowing about 80% of their budget. About 80% of the budget was totally being wasted. So about $4,000 a month. I think they were spending about $5,000 a month. So 80% of $5,000 is $4,000. $4,000 a month of that budget was just being completely wasted, and it was abundantly clear in the analytics. Had they spent 10 minutes looking at the data, they would have known it. But so many people set a pay-per-click strategy as a set it and forget it thing, and they don't manage it at all regularly. And as such, it's a total waste of their budget. Pay-per-click is one of the spaces, as is a lot of marketing. You shouldn't believe everything you hear either. You need to test it for yourself. Specifically with this, I'm talking about remarketing. Remarketing is one of those things that on paper sounds like a no-brainer idea and that should perform incredibly well. So many people have set up remarketing campaigns and thrown budgets at it, thrown money at it, and then they just let it run and they don't come back because it sounds like it's a no-brainer. But almost every single case of a remarketing campaign that we have taken over or that I've analyzed for somebody just as a try to help you out kind of thing, remarketing campaigns have incredibly high bounce rates and don't perform all that well. So if you're going to jump on a strategy like remarketing, you need to make sure you test it, analyze it, and then figure out, is this working for me or not? And as you're thinking about pay-per-click and the fact that the cost to acquire customers through that will rise in 2018, I would encourage you to consider investing in growing organic traffic that will pay dividends for years to come. We know when we earn traffic and we go about it the long way, the hard way, that it will pay dividends and pay ROI for a much longer basis. Actually, our customers who make that investment with organic traffic, every single time their second year is better than their first year. And every single time their third year is better than their second year. But they have to have that continued focus on investing into it on a regular basis. And your strategy has to evolve. Your second year is different than your first year. You need to start doing rewrites and some of that in your second year that you don't do probably in your first year. So that strategy's got to evolve as you're going forward in your organic traffic. But if you're investing into pay-per-click and maybe you're not seeing the results or you're a little scared by what might happen from a cost perspective in 2018 as the competitiveness for those keywords gets higher and higher, I would highly encourage you to think about what you're doing from an organic perspective, because investing in that content creation will pay dividends for you in years to come. So where do you start? I know we've talked about a lot of things, and a lot of things that are very data-driven, some things that are very brand-driven as well, but some things that are very data-driven. So if you're trying to figure all this out, we're coming up on the end of the year, you're trying to figure out where am I, what marketing investments have I made this year that are working for me, what do I need to be doing differently, or maybe you just want to better understand your Google Analytics and you don't understand it all that well. We'd love to connect with you on a free Google Analytics analysis. It's a relatively short process, but something that can be very beneficial and effective, and just helping you understand that. Something we will make available to you totally free of charge, and help you figure that out. So you should be seeing on your screen right now a poll that says, would you like a free Google Analytics analysis? And simply check yes or no. We don't care which one you check. We just want to make it available to you to take a next step, to figure out where you need to go on the strategy journey, to help you put together a plan for 2018. So if you could, if you're on the webinar and you're still awake, if you could either check yes, I'd love help creating it looks like a typo in there, but I'd love help creating a strategy for my 2018 marketing plan. I'd love help figuring that out. Check the yes box, and we'll get in touch with you to help you figure that out. If you got your analytics on lockdown, you're an all-star, or maybe you're a customer and you're getting regular analytics reporting from us already, just check no. I understand my Google Analytics, and we won't follow up with you. If we could get about 70% of our attendees to vote, that's kind of what benchmark we're supposed to be using to keep Keep things moving along. Right now we have less than half of people voted. So that means either I put half of people asleep today, which might be possible because I'm actually fighting a cold and have been for about 2 weeks. So not feeling 100%, but hopefully I didn't put you to sleep. But if you're on the webinar, you haven't walked away from your computer, if you can just check yes or no, that'd be awesome. If we get it to 70%, then GoToMeeting will let us keep things moving forward. In the meantime, while we're waiting on the last couple of people there to vote, if you have any questions, if you want to put those in the chat panel, be happy to answer those questions for you. Saw a couple questions already pop it in there as we were going throughout our time together today. So if you have questions, please put those in the chat panel, and we will make sure to get those questions answered for you. Awesome. We'll go ahead and get this poll closed out. Any last minute people need to vote in that poll? Awesome. We will get that closed out and get on to answering any questions that you have. So a question here about what system do you recommend for doing marketing automation? There's a couple. One, the system I showed you actually has lead intelligence tied into it. That's a piece of software that we are partners with called SharpSpring, so we can get you more information on that. Most email marketing actually has some marketing automation built into it as well, at least at a basic level. So if you use MailChimp or Constant Contact, you can probably use that to do some basic marketing automation. So would encourage you to check that out, but getting that up and running. A question from Kelly, thoughts on drip marketing? Drip marketing means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but overall, I would say it's a great thing. So not quite knowing which piece of it you're asking about, but it definitely is a great thing. Dripping content out to people on a regular basis can keep them engaged with you, and it's something we do. I mean, our webinar strategy, you could say fits into a drip marketing approach. We're sharing information, we're helping you figure things out, we're educating you, we're sharing knowledge, and getting that out on a regular basis. We publish our own blogs as well, probably not as often as we should, but we publish our own blogs, and that's a form. So getting that information out. Marketing automation ties into that too. So question here from Mike, is it possible in a cost-effective manner to automatically engage website visitors who never book? The answer is yes and no. It's actually a really in-depth question. To do that effectively, like at some point you have to have there's a couple ways to try to go about that. Like at some point to do it effectively, you have to have some conversion opportunity. So you have to have some way to capture their email address or get them to engage with you to be able to identify who that person is. You can do it without identifying who that person is through remarketing, as I talked about. Google will do that through remarketing. Facebook can do that through remarketing as well. We have found the statistics on that to be less than overwhelming, and the ROI on that to be lower. So don't know that I would necessarily encourage that, but there's other ways to do that. There's also shopping cart abandonment and being able to do that effectively. So lots of ways to engage website visitors who never book, but yes, I would encourage you to check that out, and then figuring out the best way to do it for you and your budget is the trick of all that. I had another question here about recommendation for email service for newsletter marketing. If you're going to do it yourself, I encourage you to check out Constant Contact or MailChimp. If you've used one of those and you don't love them, or you're looking for something more advanced, there's actually software we use that I can turn you on to. Email me and I can be happy to turn you on to that. We could actually set up an account for you underneath our account if you want to use that. It's more advanced though. It's not the entry level do-it-yourself software. But if you're a more advanced user, it's a lot more powerful than Constant Contact or a MailChimp. Another question here, we're a 9-room suite country boutique inn. Is it a benefit for spreading marketing budget too thin to advertise with a company that markets tree houses, yurts, nature lodges, etc.? There's a lot that goes into that question, Kara. I think you just have to look at what type of customer are they attracting. I don't know. You could say yes, you could say no. It really just depends on the traffic that they have. But then analyzing that, it's really hard to say, matter of fact, like without knowing more about that specific situation, whether it's a benefit or not, as well as what the costs are and how much traffic you're going to get there. If you're not necessarily like the rest of the inventory they have, they may not have customers looking for something like you. And you've got to look at it and say, okay, well, if they don't have customers looking for something like me because I'm so different from everything else, are they going to attract the customer that's going to book with me? You'll probably get traffic, but is it the right customer? That's a key question you need to answer. Is it the right customer? So, but think about that, Kara, and just think about what traffic they're attracting to your site. Because whatever traffic they attract to their site is the traffic they're going to ultimately pass on to your site. Well, I think that's it. I think we've got all the questions on our chat panel today. If there's any other questions, happy to answer those. Here's a follow-up question or another question. What open rate would you target for email? Don't frequent emails, turn off guests. The open rate I would target for emails depends on how you built your email list. The industry average for the travel industry is about 20%. We target 30 to 40% for our email campaigns. But that varies again based on the list, the quality, where the addresses came from, if they're all past guests versus leads, things like that. And then don't frequent emails, turn off guests. That's a data-driven question, Mark. So that's not an emotional question. I think it's asked in a way that, and you may have heard that from somebody, but let the data tell you that. I get that question all the time. And the answer is the data will answer it for you. If you're sending one email campaign a month and you're seeing good performance on it, try sending two and see what happens. If you see unsubscribe rate go up and you see open rate go down, that might be an indicator that you sent too frequent of an email. A lot of people use that as an excuse to send too little email. I will tell you that first and foremost. But if you study the top brands, the biggest brands in the world send massive amounts of email. I get email. I do a ton of corporate travel, and I am a Hilton Rewards member, and I get tons of email from Hilton. And I guarantee you, Hilton has studied whether or not sending one email a day or 2 emails a day is too much, because their database, they spend a lot of money to grow their email database. So I bet you they've studied that and they know what's going on. But the right answer for you isn't probably daily like it is for Hilton. And Hilton Rewards, but you need to look at it for you and try it and see what the data tells you. Don't just accept what some marketer told you. Don't just accept what I tell you. Like, test it for yourself. What I tell you comes from working with our customer base, but every customer is unique. Every situation is unique. Every email list is unique. So you've got to test it for yourself and see what works for you. But I can tell you overall, sending more frequent emails will not turn off your guests. Well, that's everything we got today. I think that's the last question in the chat panel. Again, thanks everybody for your time. Keep an eye out on your email inbox. We will send more invitations for you for some upcoming webinars. We're going to be doing some further things about 2018 planning, as well as some specific things on PayPerClick. So if that's something that you are working on, keep an eye out for that. If there's anything we can do to help, my email address, phone number are both on the screen there. As always, please get in touch. If you need help figuring out your marketing plan for 2018, please get in touch with us. We'd love to talk to you about what that looks like. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.